Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midlands online worship service. I'm Shana Barth, the worship associate for this morning's service. If you haven't already, please type into the chat box who you are and who you've brought with you today. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open hearts and minds because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we are all connected to each other and the earth. If you are visiting us today, a special welcome to you. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. If you've been attending for some time and have come to feel that this is your spiritual home and you are considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our minister, Eric Severson, or a member of the welcome team, or let us know of your interest in the chat box. If you have a chalice or candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. Miriam's going to go do that. Yeah, go ahead, go get the candle. We will be including joys and sorrows this morning as we usually do during the service. You will want to find the participant icon to raise your hand for that. And we now have an online donation option, which we will introduce after the service. We will move on now to announcements. You will see them on your screen. Next week's service will be Resilience and Renewal by the Reverend Christine Robinson, Minister Emerita of the First Unitarian Church of Albuquerque. Resilience is the ability to keep on keeping on in the face of all changes, losses, and difficulties in our lives. It is a skill with intellectual, emotional, and spiritual components. Please join us. Religious education will begin in October this year to allow time for families to adjust to new school arrangements. The RE team will be hosting a physically distanced lunch and supply pickup for families on the afternoon of Sunday, September 27th to launch the program. More information to come. Save the date for our annual meeting held virtually on Sunday, October 25th at 12:15. Don't forget to nominate someone for UUFOM's 2020 Unsung Hero. Which UUFOM member do you feel has made and continues to make a significant contribution to UUFOM? The contributions may not generally be well known by members and friends of the congregation. You may nominate more than one person, but please use a separate form for each nominee. Entries must be received by Sunday, October 11th. Our 2020 Unsung Hero will be announced at the annual meeting. Online nomination information can be found in our newsletter or on our Facebook page. Please email Wendy at office@uufom.org if you need other alternatives. In case you missed it last week, the board wants you to know that it has extended its suspension of large group in-person activities through the end of December. Our greatest asset is our people, and everyone's safety continues to be paramount. We want to help ensure that our activities and gathering place are as safe as possible for the most vulnerable among us. Board members, pastoral care team members, staff members, and our minister continue to be available to you if you have any questions or concerns. Meeting by Zoom will continue to be available into this program year. If your group needs to access Zoom, especially if you'd like to meet for more than 40 minutes without having to restart the meeting, please contact Wendy at office@uufom.org. As of August 31st, the financial health of UUFOM is good. Year to date, our income is above target and our expenses are below the budgeted amounts. In May, many of you provided additional financial support to allow the roof over our RE wing to be replaced, and that work was completed in July. Thank you so much. Our fellowship was also fortunate to receive funds through the Paycheck Protection Program in order to keep our employees paid. However, we still don't know if UUFOM will come through the pandemic unscathed. We have more than $32,000 of pledge payments unpaid for 2020. Our fundraisers are stalled right now, and we have seen decreases in the weekly offering, rental, and interest income. We will publish further newsletter updates to keep you informed as the year progresses. If you want more detailed information on UUFOM finances, financial reports are available from our treasurer, Vicki Rothar. Our fall cleanup will be held Saturday, October 10th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Fellowship. We will be doing chores outside. Masks and social distancing is required. A building and grounds meeting will be held tailgate style from 12 to 12:30, and all are welcome to attend. Bring a sack lunch. Further information can be found in our newsletter or on our Facebook group. Check your email for the weekly candle flame, which will now be circulated on Fridays. If you wish to submit an article, please email it to Wendy Altmeyer by Wednesday at 9 o'clock to have it included in the upcoming issue. And finally, our fellowship will host a virtual meeting of the Midland Area Interfaith Friends next Sunday, September 27th at 4 p.m. via Zoom call. Minister Eric Severson will open, moderate, and close the meeting. Local speakers Ernest Carter and Bertha Vaughn will share their experiences of growing up in the Jim Crow era. Umberine Jamil will give us an update on the flood recovery efforts in Sanford. Please join us. And now, if you have a candle or chalice at home and would like to light it now, please do so. Please join in reading our chalice lighting words today by next week's guest minister, the Reverend Christine Robinson. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Thank you, Sarah. Our opening words today are titled, On Claiming This Time for Renewal by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Though you have been warned and given plenty of explanations, reasons to do otherwise, you have persisted to claim a life of joy and justice and to carve out this time for renewal of your own heart. Despite the din, demanding your attention, luring you towards fear and cynicism, you persist with gratitude for this day, this life that has been given, this chance to begin again, despite all the forces of fragmentation, the disappointing ways we fail each other, fail ourselves. We must refuse to let grief undo us, or to let our dreams get lost along the way. In spite of all the evidence, we keep showing up at the edge of our own longing. And then we keep going, remembering this duty we have to life in a greater sense. This duty we have to each other, our children and their children. This hope that is also a choice we make. This promise we fight for, to persist in kindness, persevere in compassion, and prevail in a life that is bound entirely to love. Come, let us worship together.
With your mics muted, please join Melanie in singing our opening hymn, number 398, To See the World. Melanie will play the hymn through once and then begin singing.
see the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower, old infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
I invite you now to center yourselves and enter into a time of reflection, meditation, or prayer. Today's words are titled Now by English Unitarian Christian, the Reverend Clifford M. Reed. You are the eternal, the timeless. You would have us dance and sing in celebration of the present moment, but we can't see your smile or hear your song. But how will we find you if we don't look where you are? We search the past through its dusty libraries, its darkened ruins, its blood-soaked battlefields, but you are not there. We find only idols and people bowing down to them. Of you there is but a whisper. Why do you seek the living among the dead? We search the future, straining our eyes to find you, but we see nothing, only our own mirages and maybes, reflected back on fearful, hopeful faces. And we hear a whisper. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Tomorrow will look after itself. You are now in us, with us. The present is your dwelling place. Call us out from bondage. Touch us with eternity. Free us from the drag of the past, the pull of the future. May we know you, love you, serve you, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but now, in this timeless moment. Amen. For our Time for All Ages today, we'll share in a video produced by the Unitarian Universalist Association's You the Vote project. It includes the song We Shall Be Known, written by the group Mamuse, Sarah Nutting and Carisha Longacre, and is performed here by the How We Thrive virtual choir. You'll hear my voice narrating the printed text.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we cry. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning we shall.
In moments of despair, when threatened with injustice,
we shall be known.
we show up caring for our communities. We show up demanding justice. We show up so every voice is heard.
Sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now.
All of us,
It is time now that
in partnership,
it is time we lead ourselves into the well.
all of us,
It's time now.
in community,
What a time to be alive in this great
all of us,
turning we
in
shall
love
learn
that can change the world.
in this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
All of us,
This great turning we shall
together,
learn to lead in
we thrive.
love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
I hope the families here today will talk some time today about the words and images in this video. And if you can contribute time or treasure to the Get Out the Vote effort, I hope you will visit uuthevote.org.
I know we'll take some time to talk about that. Our reading today is a quote on renewal by German film director Werner Herzog. Whether something lasts or not has nothing to do with whether it's made of stone or steel or wood or fabric. A house built in all wood can be a monument that lasts for hundreds of years because it seduces people to live in it, to use it and maintain it. Eternity depends on whether people are willing to take care of something. In Greece, ordinary white houses are repainted every year. Today, we are often told to use materials and structures that are free of maintenance, but no building can be neglected entirely. We need constantly to renew our relationships to the houses we live in, to our friends, to our own bodies, all the time, every day. Let's share now in a musical interlude a medley of hymns from our supplemental hymnal. In My Quiet Sorrow by Jeannie Gagne, As We Sing of Hope and Joy by Elizabeth Alexander, and Ubi Caritas Gregorian Chant, an improvisational arrangement by Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. Some things lie outside our control. Sadly, for example, no one could save or extend the life of 87-year-old Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died on Friday, though many today might wish to. It is within our control to express gratitude that over Justice Ginsburg's 27 years on the court, people of all kinds and across the country benefited by advances in the law, particularly persons of color, gays and lesbians, and women. She will be missed in ways too numerous to mention. Justice Ginsburg summed up her own life, I think, in this quote, which has been circulating on social media since her death. If you want to be a true professional, you will do something outside yourself, something to repair tears in our community, something to make a life a little better for people less fortunate than you. That's what I think a meaningful life is. One lives not just for oneself, but for one's community. Even as we mourn her death, Justice Ginsburg calls us to care for one another and to continue fighting for equal justice under the law. Because some things are within our control, if we can muster the courage and passion and love to make them happen. I've noticed a tension in myself when I watch MSNBC shows in the evening. They tend to reflect a progressive worldview and lately have covered important issues of public health, constitutional crisis, and national security. But the relevant, timely, important snippets of conversation on each show are separated by advertisements for expensive cars, medications, and financial and security services. The tension is called cognitive dissonance. While across the country people cry out for justice and compassion, the engine of capitalism continues its course, imposing itself on our consciousness. So the message I receive with these shows is mixed. The administration's latest action is horrible, but your life will be better if you buy this. Late 20th century author Margaret Halsey wrote, "A commercial society urges its citizens to be responsible for things, not for people. It is the unquestioned assumption of a mercantile culture that things need and deserve attention, but that people can take care of themselves." By and large, I think Halsey may be right. We are conditioned for consumption. But gladly, human beings can and do resist, particularly in times of collective trauma. For example, natural disaster, terrorist attack, or act of war. When the chips are down, when lives are on the line or people cannot take care of themselves, our humanity comes out. Most of us are willing and able to some degree to resist materialism and focus on people's needs. We saw this after the flooding last spring. As shelters popped up around the area, neighbors helped neighbors, even strangers, muck out basements, find accommodations, get to appointments, care for animals, and buy food and medicine. We can see people caring for people in current events, protesting injustice, escaping or recovering from wildfires or hurricanes, gathering to comfort one another Friday night. in front of the Supreme Court building. The Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah ends this evening. The high holy days, the days of awe, have begun. Observant Jews around the world once again are taking time for introspection and repentance, focusing on people and relationships and not necessarily on things. In talking with members and friends of this congregation over the last few weeks, I realized that many of us find ourselves downsizing, usually by choice, but sometimes not, ridding ourselves of things that no longer hold great meaning as they once might have. There seems to come a time in our middle-class, 21st century industrialized lives when many of us pass through an accumulating phase and realize we just don't need all this stuff. I am embarrassed to admit that I still own 64 t-shirts. I counted them last night. Who needs 64 t-shirts? I like to tell myself that as we get older, we come to value relationships more than things. We start to wonder about what kind of legacy we will leave to future generations. I'm imagining my child responding, "Come on, 64? Sarah Nutting and Carisha Longacre, the singing group Mamuse, understand a deep truth about legacy. In their song, "We Shall Be Known," they suggest that we will be remembered not by what or how many things we have, but by the company we keep, by the quality of our relationships with one another, by how and when we show up for the marginalized or the most vulnerable among us. We'll be remembered, for example, by how we get into what civil rights leader John Lewis described as good trouble, seeking peace and justice in spite of the status quo. Let me repeat the narrated text of the video we watched. It made claims about Unitarian Universalists that I hope we can live up to. In moments of despair, when threatened with injustice, we show up caring for our communities. We show up demanding justice. We show up so every voice is heard. All of us in partnership, all of us in community, all of us in a love that can change the world. All of us. Together we thrive. I hope that we and other progressives in the Tri-Cities region can embody these claims. Justice Ginsburg understood the need for such unity of purpose and collaboration when she urged, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." I would love for our fellowship to gain a reputation as a people who show up when there's a need. We may be small, but guided by our principles, we can have an outsized influence on the world, as Unitarians and Universalists have for centuries. In preparing for today, I tried to assess which of our 7 guiding principles speaks to valuing people and relationships over material objects. I couldn't choose 1 or 2. Every one of them applies. Inherent worth and dignity, justice, equity, and compassion, acceptance and encouragement to spiritual growth, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and use of the democratic process, world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of existence. Even a proposed eighth principle fits. Building multicultural, beloved community by dismantling racism and other oppressions. They all apply. Our principles are values-based and people-centered. Unitarian Universalism itself is centered not around any single theology, no one person's source of meaning or spiritual practice. It revolves instead around our shared values and supporting one another's search for truth and meaning. In this, we celebrate relationships, the life we share, all of us. Together we thrive. A focus on relationship is why we build a covenant into our organizational structure and renew it periodically as new people join us. Relationship is why we form engagement, hospitality, and pastoral care teams, and living our values every day teams, among others. In the life of this congregation, we claim this time and space each week in large part for renewal, to commune with others seeking meaning, to set aside the daily tasks, to focus our minds and hearts on what theologian Paul Tillich called issues of ultimate concern. The roots of the word religion mean to bind back to that which we consider holy, sacred, or what Tillich called the ground of being. We gather each week to renew our relationships with ourselves, with one another, and with the ground of being. In today's prayer, the Reverend Cliff Reed invited us to approach the eternal, timeless source of all being. He suggested that only in the moment, the now, will we find our deepest, dearest sources of meaning. He asserted that the divine dwells within us, not in the past or the future, but in the present, in the now. Every now and again, we must return to the well. If we aspire to a life of meaning and purpose, such as Justice Ginsburg described, our spirits, our hearts need sustaining. So it behooves us to take time, to make time for some kind of spiritual practice or philosophical practice and renewal. In our opening words, the Reverend Gretchen Haley affirmed our persistence in claiming lives of joy and justice and times of renewal. Despite the forces of fragmentation and all the ways we fail ourselves and each other, we have made it to today. Hallelujah. Despite life's setbacks, we keep showing up. First, at the edge of our own longing. Then, because it is our nature, we go beyond to the duties we have to life, each other, and future generations. Haley invites us to remember this hope that is also a choice we make, this promise we fight for, to persist in kindness, persevere in compassion, and prevail in a life that is bound entirely to love. These are within our power to share: kindness, compassion, love. According to German filmmaker Werner Herzog in our reading for today, not only do we have this power, but eternity itself is in our hands. Whether or not something lasts or not has nothing to do with whether it's made of stone or steel or wood or fabric, he said. Rather, eternity depends on whether people are willing to take care of something. We need constantly to renew our relationships to the houses we live in, to our friends, to our own bodies, all the time, every day. In other words, things and relationships last in large part because we care for them. I don't know how many of you might have a keepsake at home that reminds you of previous generations. Or some of you who know dear friends, who've kept up with dear friends from long ago. These exist because we care. Yes, we sometimes lose things or people in spite of caring for them, like the notorious RBG. Not all is within our control. But we are beings capable of sharing kindness, compassion, and love. Eternity, said Herzog, depends on our caring. I hope that you find in this community in the coming year as much loving support as you do the occasional challenge, as much rest and renewal as you do engagement in activities, as much opportunity to receive as you do to give. Let us claim this time and cherish this community as sources of rest and renewal. May we repair tears in our community and make life a little better for people less fortunate. May our efforts be sustained so that tomorrow we again may show up in love and service to those in need. It is time now for us to thrive. So in this great turning, may we learn to lead in love. Amen, and blessed be.
Before we begin today's offering, Craig Murchison would like to say a few words. You can unmute yourself now.
Yes, thank you very much. I look forward to being able to tell all of you about our path to the UU Fellowship and why we're so pleased to be members. Craig and Pam grew up in the Presbyterian tradition, but as young adults, we were attracted to the United Church of Christ in Minneapolis, St. Paul. The UCC Church there incorporated modern thinking in sermons, just like Eric's, and was socially active, like the UU Fellowship, and had a generally progressive philosophy. After moving to Midland in 1970, we joined the local UCC church headed by Glenn Bauman, who some of you may have known. That church had the same characteristics as the one in St. Paul. Biblical discussions were wide-ranging, so to speak. For example, I can remember Glenn saying, the Bible is best thought of as a history of man's understanding of God rather than the Word of God. Statements like that were meaningful to me. Also, Glenn frequently used the writings of 20th century authors such as the German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I told Glenn one time that basically the UCC membership was people who would not be attending church if it was not for the UCC church. Does that sound familiar in our context? Unfortunately, Glenn eventually retired and subsequently passed away. Over the years, the church gradually reverted to a more typical Protestant church, and we maintained our fellowship for a number of years, but eventually left. We went to a number of services at various churches in town over the years, but nothing really clicked. I basically could not live with myself repeating things like the Apostles' Creed each Sunday or listening to the Orthodox dogma. We didn't attend church for a number of years, but we were missing a faith experience. In an effort to gain that faith experience, we finally gave the UUFOM a try. Better late than never. It has met many of our intellectual needs, along with being a caring, socially conscious, and diverse membership. Thank all of you for being yourselves. Finally, we are especially pleased to support the UUFOM because the fellowship is important to us. And being a small organization, we know that our dollars, by definition, will have an impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. We affirm the work of this fellowship and its mission through our financial contributions. We continue to rely on you paying your pledges and providing what you would otherwise drop in the collection plate. While our in-person activities may be suspended, our staff continue working hard to provide the services we need. They and the bills still need to be paid. Please give as generously as you can, and may what you give bring you joy. Please take this time to write a check if you wish and mail it to the fellowship at 6220 Jefferson Avenue, Midland, Michigan, 48640. To donate online, please stay after the service for instructions. Another option is to set up bank auto pay, which can be arranged by asking our treasurer, Vicki Rothar, for the UFOM checking account number and then having your bank set up a regular payment from your account. Thank you for your generosity. We will now share in an offertory from our supplemental hymnal titled Tula Klizeo by Joseph Shabalala, played by Melanie. The English translation of the hymn, written in the Zulu language, is, "Be still, my heart, even here I am at home."
Thank you, Melanie. Now, with your mics muted, please join Melanie in singing our closing hymn, Here on the Paths of Every Day. Melanie will play it through once first.
Here on the paths of every day, here on the common human way, is all the stuff the gods would take to build a heaven to mold and make new Eden ours. The task sublime to build eternity in time. We need no other stones to build the temple of the dream.
Thank you again, Melanie. Please join me in reading our closing words by Icelandic Canadian Unitarian V. Emil Gudmundsson as we extinguish our chalice. And now, may we have faith in life to do wise planting, that the generations to come may reap even more abundantly than we. May we be bold in bringing to fruition the golden dreams of human kinship and justice. This we ask, that the fields of promise become fields of reality. Thank you to everyone who helped make this service possible today, and thank you all for joining us. If you can stay to chat, great. If you need to go, we'll understand. Whatever you may encounter in the coming week, please know that the love of this community goes with you. Until we're together again, many blessings.